The winter of 1855 brought more than cold and snow to the countryside of Devon, England. While some reports say it was the coldest winter on record, the front that ushered in the chill quite possibly heralded another cause for concern.
Speak of the devil. Idle hands are the devil's playground. And any other idioms and adages aside, did the devil, yes, the flesh and blood devil, take a lovely stroll through southern England in February of 1855, leaving behind a trail of footprints between 40 and 100 miles long? For one night, had the people of this area gotten verifiable proof of the devil on the prowl? I guess the devil may be in the details. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks for hanging out with us this week as we take you lucky devils on a ride of mystery. And stay tuned after the show for this week's Musician Spotlight. This week, we're bringing you Venom Eddie Brocc.
This is the Supernatural Tendencies podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Christy.
And this is episode 19, The Devil's Footprints of Devon.
The blistering cold left temperatures around freezing for several months in southwest England. But the morning of February 8th, 1855, brought more than freshly fallen snow to Devon County. It wasn't long before a discovery was made that would shock the residents and carry on through the years as one of the most peculiar and baffling cases in paranormal history. Footprints, or more like hoof prints, in the snow measuring 4 inches long and 3 inches wide, were lined up in a path that something had taken the night before.
Reports say the prints had a perceived stride of 8 to 16 inches in a distinct cloven shape. Possibly, most impressively, the prints that stretched for some say 100 miles seemed to defy physics and the obstacles they traversed. Through barns, over haystacks, in and out of gardens and courtyards, across frozen lakes and fields would be interesting enough, but some instances defied logic. Up and over houses, leaving prints across rooftops, along narrow fencing, straight up the sides of walls and trees to appear again on the other side. At some points, they seemed to enter and exit pipes that were only 4 inches in diameter. The fact that the footprints took a route that no natural animal could feasibly take made many residents think that this was no natural animal at all, but the devil himself.
The first arguably reliable account of the incident would come from the Reverend H.T. Elcombe in a collection of documents that he had produced and sent to the Illustrated London News that were marked not for publication. One entry read, quote, "The marks which appeared on the snow, which lay very thinly on the ground at the time, and which were seen on Friday morning, to all appearances were the perfect impression of a donkey's hoof. The length, 4 inches by 2 3/4 inches, but instead of progressing as that animal would have done, or indeed as any other would have done, feet right and left, it appeared that foot had followed in a single line, the distance from each tread being 8 inches, or rather, more than footmarks in every parish being exactly the same size, and the steps the same length."
The documents quoted above were not rediscovered until the 1950s, leaving plenty of time for the stories to grow. Some said the prints were so deep in the snow that they almost hit the ground underneath, as if seared into the snow. More frighteningly, the hoof prints on occasion wandered right up to the thresholds of homes, just a knock away from revealing itself to the occupants. While extraordinary in itself, the Prince of Devon isn't by itself in the creepy footprint file of the unexplained. In May of 1840, Captain Sir James Ross found a similar situation while conducting an expedition on the Kerguelen Islands in the southern Indian Ocean. The islands, being described as overly rocky and windswept, were initially devoid of life besides seabirds and seals until rabbits, cats, and sheep were introduced by a later caravan. So the discovery of hoof prints very close in description to those in Devon were surprising to say the least. Ultimately, Lieutenant Byrd of Captain Ross's expedition came to the conclusion that it must have been made by a donkey or possibly a small pony from someone's previous visit to the islands.
Another case in 1945 found another trail of hoof-like prints lined up near Everberg, Belgium. While the size of the prints were slightly smaller than those in Devon, their general appearance made Eric Frank Russell, one of the investigators of the phenomenon, draw a direct link between the two happenings. While some speculated that the prints were caused by goats commonly found in the area, the difference between the commonly seen goat prints and what was found in 1945 still throws this theory into uncertainty.
Which brings us back to Devon. Did the devil really take a brisk jaunt through the countryside? As with the story in Belgium, other theories have been issued. One possible solution would be as simple as mice. Hopping mice, to be exact. Posed originally by the newspapers of the time and still prevalent today, the idea is that while appearing to be bipedal, the drawings made of the tracks appear to be in a near straight line, lacking any kind of offset canter one would expect with a bipedal animal. The idea of a hopping mouse could be plausible since the mouse would probably hop in a straight line, and with its body imprint forming a hoof-like shape in the snow, our devil may have suddenly shrank in size. Furthermore, a small creature such as a mouse could fit into small diameter pipes, answering that question, although the scaling of walls may be a bit harder to approach.
Other obvious animals have been theorized as well, such as birds, sheep, and goats. But the most interesting may be that of a kangaroo. Only really postulated a handful of times, the idea that a kangaroo had escaped from a nearby zoo or collection may have been a stretch of the imagination, but it did help quell some of the fears of the incident. Running the gambit of the animal kingdom, some would go on to put forth meteorological solutions. To be quite frank, the combination of pressure systems with a certain amount of condensation that could produce such a phenomenon would be, how can we say, distant in believability to be covered here today. This idea is only really supported by one individual, J. Allen Rennie. And while we don't like to write off any theories outright, if this vague description of such circumstances intrigues you, feel free to pursue further research on the subject.
Next on the list of possible explanations would be of the human element. Not so much of a question of would someone hoax such a thing, but could they hoax 40 to 100 miles in a single night? That would be an impressive feat even if the workload were to be shared between multiple individuals, although the ingenuity of the human mind can never fully be underestimated. Whether made by a mundane mouse searching for shelter or food, which, by this point, could be scrutinized by the same standards of a human hoaxer, or by His Dark Majesty himself, rummaging through Victorian England for sinners to claim, the mystery of the devil's footprints of Devon remain a mystery that will only solidify their place in uncertainty as the years roll by.
Because it's going to stay up all year long. No, I'm serious. I'm going to leave it up. What?
Nothing.
What?
Nothing.
I can't have a Christmas tree in the office all year long?
No, you can.
In the studio?
No, it's fine.
The studio/office.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've bled the music out at this point to officially bring everybody into the conversation that we started with, but we now have the Christmas tree up in the studio.
Because I was thinking, wouldn't it be awesome if we got like little alien and Bigfoot? And,
oh my God.
Yeah. Are you seeing now where I'm going with this? You want to keep the tree.
I'm totally on board.
Yeah.
Oh,
little planets.
I've been nagging Tara for a Bruins tree for a solid 8 years now. To where we have the official family tree they can do whatever the hell they want with.
Oh, yeah.
But I also want my own Bruins tree.
Yeah.
But now for the studio, we can have a paranormal tree.
I think, yeah.
Oh.
That's sweet.
That's never dawned on me.
Well, that's why I'm here. That's the purpose I serve.
I mean, I brought the thing back from Orlando.
Yeah.
For us, the alien buddy.
Yeah, I'll have to get a picture of that and post it in our Facebook group.
Yeah, I got the little alien buddy looking at us.
Awesome.
Okay, so we're here this week And I am excited because I love these shorter stories. I feel like we can encompass them better. And so when I was writing the script, I was super excited. So if any of you like this script, tell me about it because I really like it and I feel good about it. So
you're so weird.
I know I am. I'm weird. But
God.
when I get excited about something, I feel good about it. Like sometimes I'm like,
why are we never like on par at the same time with our excitability on topics? It's either one or the other. Like one of us is like, yeah, and the other one's like, yep.
Well, I think that's a differentiation in being human.
But I do like this. What?
The differentiation in being humans. You know, like we're different people.
Yeah.
So
but I do like this story.
It's great.
It's
I like
pretty
it.
cool. I don't know. I mean, like I remember seeing it, but I didn't know like all the details. So I think it's a really cool story.
Yeah. And on top of that, I wanted to give a shout out to him because we wouldn't be doing this one so quickly because I had never really heard of it either without one of our contributors to our T-shirt and hoodie selling campaign there for stuff would be Rod Wise, one of the founding members of the Supernatural Tendencies group. If anybody in the group has a chance to shout him out, thank you, because not only did he contribute to us by buying a couple of hoodies, he also gave us some show topics, which I've been pleading with our listenership to do, and he did. So I wanted to give him a spotlight this week because he gave us this episode, and he also helped contributed to the hoodie campaign. Thank you. He also happens to be my uncle, so thank you, Uncle Rod, because I feel weird about saying Rod Wise without saying uncle in front of it.
Yeah.
So this week, The Devil's Footprints of Devon.
Dun dun dun.
Pretty short story, pretty concise story, and the only real thing we will get to later would be the founding of the documents, which I kind of put in the middle of the script, and I did that to help the flow of the story. I didn't want to give the whole story, and then, oh yeah, by the way, in 1950, and let's backtrack.
Yeah.
So even though I put it in the middle of the story, the papers found by H.T. Ellicombe were actually found in 1950s when the story happened 100 years previous. So
pretty crazy.
It was crazy. So let's wrap this up and package into a bundle real quick and recap what we're talking about here. The Devil's Footprints, or Hoof Prints, which a lot of people call them in Devon, England. Devon, England being in the south of England, a little more rural. It's the opposite side of England if you're not geographically savvy.
I can't say that
of
word.
The UK. What?
Rural.
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 Rural. 2 R's. Rural.
Rural.
How do you go to that store? That's like Quality Farm and Fleet.
I don't go to that store.
Okay, not that one, but there's another bigger chain. They sell popcorn. You know what I'm talking about? Rural King.
Oh yeah.
What if we had to go to Rural King?
I don't go there. I send Daryl.
How do you tell him where to go?
Problem solved.
How do you tell him where to go?
I don't. There's literally nothing at that store I would buy except popcorn.
They have huge bags of popcorn.
Do they?
Tara's Uncle Max brought me a huge bag of popcorn, and he says it's as good as Hill's used to be.
Oh, now that's a steep claim.
And first off, it's not that great. Okay, I love popcorn. It is a passion of mine. I love popcorn and bread. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
Popcorn I love. And it's not the best popcorn I've ever had, but I love every popcorn.
Yeah.
And if you remember Hill's to be this level of popcorn, like it's not that great.
I feel you.
Comparatively.
I've been on a popcorn kick. I mean, like, I love popcorn anyway, but, like, I've been obsessed with it for the past couple weeks.
I know. When I came into the studio, I had to kick, 3 bags out of the way.
I know.
You just have them laying
you
everywhere.
Stuck your hand in my popcorn, and all willy-nilly, I didn't even offer any, and that's just rude.
I know it is. I just took the excess bags. She'll pop bags of popcorn, for those who don't know. She'll pop whole bags of popcorn in the microwave, and she has this tiny popcorn receptacle that can almost get the whole bag in, but not quite. So she'll pour it all into her receptacle that she can seal and save for later. So she'll start eating out of that, and I'll just swoop in behind her and grab what's left in the bag that wouldn't fit in the receptacle, and that sucker's mine.
Yeah, but then you got into my little receptacle too.
I did. That was after.
So I was just like, after you left, I was like, took all my damn popcorn.
Okay, so let's get back to the track. So rural southwestern England is the exact opposite side of the aisle from London. So we have, again, rural, kind of backcountry-ish without making any judgments. We need those bread baskets of the countries. But that kind of plays in, right? We wake up on this morning in February of 1855, and everybody finds this long trail of what appear to be footprints, right?
Spooky.
Spooky footprint. Well, okay, they're spooky because they look cloven.
Well, see, now at first, it wouldn't be spooky. You walk out, you see that, and you think, oh, okay, that's some animal trotted through here.
Yeah.
But, however, when you see them going up walls and over your house,
and that's where we get spooky. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just not the footprints that are dotting or lined up in the countryside. It's the path that the footprints took. Okay. One could say that deer have cloven hoof prints.
Yeah.
And deer walk within the realm of physics that we know them. But the track that these prints took would do both normal things, walking across, wherever. But then they would also go up the sides of walls, along narrow hedgerows and fencings that a deer would not be able to get up and walk on for hardly any extended period of time, let alone would they. And then we get to the pipes thing where they appear to go into these pipes to reappear on the other side of the pipe. And the pipe is very tiny, like we said, 4 inches in diameter, which isn't very large at all. So feasibly, the deer would have to go into full goo form in order to get into those pipes.
Goo form?
Full goo form, yeah.
Huh.
Like they just
Is that a scientific term?
I believe so. I'll have to cite that source, but they just go. I really don't want to walk around this pipe, and it feels like it's a straight A to B point. So just
there we go,
and then it just out the other side.
Out the other side.
And there we go. He can carry on his merry way. So unless you're under the impression of entertaining that idea, most likely a deer is not going to be doing that.
And that's what really boggles my mind about this case is the interpretation that this thing must have been kind of heavy because the footprints looked as if they were almost like seared in.
Yeah.
So then how do you explain that? How do you have something that is heavy enough, large enough to leave these deep hoof prints, but then you had those same hoof prints that lead into a pipe and come out the other side?
Okay, let me clarify this too, because I didn't exactly...
Am I reading it wrong?
You didn't read it wrong. You bumped your microphone again.
I didn't mean to, I'm sorry.
You didn't read it wrong. I just didn't put this exactly in there because I felt it was kind of contradictory, so I wanted to take this time in the discussion to explain that. In that, it was the coldest winter, a lot of people say on record, but not the most snow-filled. So when we have this snowfall, I don't want to call it a dusting, but it wasn't a full-on snowfall.
Okay, I gotcha.
Here in Ohio, and in my time here, you have a dusting, you have flurries where you really don't get concerned. They just kind of come down. Most likely they won't stick. At best, it's only going to stick to grass.
Yeah, just a light little powdery
just a little bit. Yep.
Snow.
Most likely it's going to be gone by the next morning.
Yeah.
You then, on the opposite end of the spectrum, have blizzards, which will blow. You start plowing roads or whatever, and within 20 minutes, a half hour, all your work is undone because it blows right back over. And then you start to have these drifts, which are the main cause for concern. Okay. Many of you probably already know that. So what we're talking about, which is not the case here, would be like the moderate snowfall. Maybe a couple inches that still come down that you need to pay attention when you're driving or what have you. But it's not a huge amount. We're somewhere between the dusting and the moderate. Okay, so when they say that the hoof print sank into the snow enough to almost hit ground, we're not talking about a lot of snow.
Okay, gotcha.
If there were 3 inches, that might have been a lot from my understanding of this story. So for something to sink into the snow at 3 inches, I mean, Oscar, who's what did we establish the one week? Maybe 6-pound cat, 7-pound cat?
Probably.
He could probably easily sink into how much snow we're talking about.
Okay.
So when we say these hoof prints are sinking so deep that they almost hit ground, so deep is a little misleading. And if I did that to any of our listeners, I apologize in our narrative. It's not that deep. So to say that it may be heavy, it may not be, but the fashion in which the clarity of the hoof print made it feel like it was seared, not necessarily the depth. And I know in those papers that we previously discussed by Elcombe, he does, I think, explicitly say that it appears to be seared, I think, right?
Yeah.
Or like the way they entered the snow and made the imprint. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're not looking at inches deep snow here. Like I said, if we're looking at 3, that's the top end of my guesstimate of how much snow we're looking at. So to say that the thing, whatever made the hoof prints, is heavy, I don't know if I'd say that.
Yeah.
So in my mind, a mouse possibly could still make these prints because, and I kind of just went right into it there. That was the first explanation as to what these were. It was some type of, hopping mouse.
See, but I find issue with that too, because mice are plentiful. I mean, we've lived out in the country before. We've had,
Yeah.
You don't just have one mouse. You have a gazillion of them.
Yeah.
They breed like crazy. So I'm sure this is something that people living in the country would experience quite often.
Yeah.
So this instance was clearly something out of the norm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it was in fact a hopping mouse, like I said, people would know what that is. Oh, look at that. That's not a hoof print. That's a hopping mouse. You know, we get that all the time. So this was something that significantly stood out to the people that witnessed it.
Yeah, that they would see something normally, and this seems out of the ordinary, so it might not be a normal explanation.
Exactly.
And I can agree to that. And the only thing, and we kind of talked about this before we started recording this discussion process, the only thing that I can really say to add to that is my automatic connection in my mind to how some of the theories go with the Yeti footprints. How they have this, is it like the melt freeze theory or whatever?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just applying a name to it, but how you have a print in the snow, and it may be a print of whatever, nothing extraordinary, and the snow will naturally melt, kind of making the print slightly bigger, and then it'll freeze, making it clear again, kind of, but bigger, and then maybe the next day it'll thaw again, and then refreeze, and now you have a print that's maybe 2 to 3 times the original size.
Yeah.
Simply from thawing and then freezing and thawing and then freezing. And you said you didn't really care for that idea because it seems like an overnight thing.
Well, yeah. They go. It's as if they go, in the house in the evening. Everything's fine, and then they wake up the next morning, and lo and behold, there's all these footprints.
Yeah.
Which this is kind of questionable too. So it's as if they go to bed at night, and everything's fine, and then they wake up the next morning, and lo and behold, you got all these footprints everywhere. And that was another question I had too, is if you have these things, whatever they are, outside, climbing your wall, climbing all over your roof, wouldn't you hear something? You would think that you would hear something.
Which kind of would lead credence to a lighter animal such as a mouse.
To a lighter animal, yeah.
Okay, so also to add into that would be what was the idea? Of the lack of canter. How you have like a bipedal animal, or even a I was going to say quadriplegic animal.
A quadriplegic animal.
An animal that walks on 4 legs.
I just can't.
Not a quadriplegic animal. Whether or not you have screw it. An animal that walks on 2 legs or an animal that walks on 4. You have a side-by-side motion a lot of times. If a person were to have to walk in a straight line like that, most likely they're taking a field sobriety test. And not because of some natural way that they want to walk.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are very few circumstances where any animal, whether walking on 2 or 4 legs, would walk with a straight line.
Yeah.
So that's one of the other things that kind of leads to this mouse theory, is that the mouse not being able to walk like it needs to in almost any depth of snow would need to hop to traverse the snow. And there would be no canter. Yeah. Because it's just hopping in a straight line.
I think we can both agree, though, that the kangaroo theory is probably a little far-fetched.
I bumped the table. I think there was a little more in-depth about that. Like someone knew of a kangaroo that was nearby in a collection, but I don't even think it was let loose, or reported to have gotten loose,
or much less that it hopped all the way to. Because how far apart were these? With the footprints.
How far the footprints went?
In Devon, England, and where was the other?
And they kind of went north, I believe. So it was anywhere like from 40 to 100 miles.
Okay.
And so they kind of broke up at certain points.
And then how far apart in time length were these? Because one was didn't it say 1855?
No, that's when it happened. That's when the incident of this episode happened, was in 1855.
Oh, okay.
We gave a couple other examples that were in later points in time, but to have this, like, the kangaroo would have been needed to get loose that night. And I don't think it was, but it was just
No.
like a theory of if we're going to a hopping mouse, what else hops that would do it? But the feet of a kangaroo.
I was just going to say, come on now.
You got like 6 mice, 7 mice, 8 mice.
They're all hopping together.
Yeah.
In synchronicity.
No, it's the exact
Synchronized.
opposite. You would need a tiny-footed kangaroo to make it look like this.
Yeah.
Because it's so tiny. But let's go on to those other 2 stories that we had, which were the expedition from Captain Sir James Ross, and that was 1840, so it was slightly before this Devon incident, and this was way far away. We're talking like the southern Indian Ocean, I think it was, in the Kerguelen Islands.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So they had almost the same circumstance, except there was no life on the island besides like the seabirds and the seals that would migrate there or swim and fly there, until people started coming around, and Captain Ross's expedition, at least at this time, was one of the first to keep coming through. So they kind of seen the island as it was before any real human interaction happened. So there weren't many native animals to the island, and they happened upon this section of slightly snow-covered area that would end in like a rocky terrain. So they seen almost the same thing walking through the snow, and then as soon as it hit the rocky terrain, obviously you can't track it anymore, and it stopped.
Yeah.
So they kind of did their own investigations, because I'm sure it wasn't thinking it was the devil. There was no indication of that. I think it was the devil walking, but man, maybe there's something we can eat here. I don't know. But regardless, documenting the life on the island, and they couldn't find anything, and they kind of said that maybe there was 1 or 2 expeditions that had come before them. Maybe they let loose a pony or a goat got loose or something, a sheep or something. But they kind of just wrote it off because it wasn't of huge concern. And then, of course, we have the next one that was 1945 in Belgium. And a lot more people thought it was goats at the time. Because there were a lot of goats and sheep in the area.
Yeah.
So, but it did match very closely the Devon incident. So that's where we make that connection of wondering furthermore whether or not this was maybe a sheep or a goat.
So when do you think the interpretation that this was a, quote, devil came in?
I don't really know. I know the one thing I do know is let's look at this from a cultural standpoint. In 1855, we're talking about Victorian England. And in Victorian England, we have this rush of literature. We have this rush of expansion with Victorian England that brings about a lot of how can I even really word it? Opening up for ideas and also a backlash of inclusion. Okay, so with that backlash of inclusion, what I mean is you have a lot of viable other cultural inputs coming into play now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Are you following me? So now you have this, especially I could see this, and this isn't verified, this is just me, speaking myself, of especially in the countrysides of this backlash of inclusion. And so you have this certain level of anxiety sometimes, and then maybe mixed with a little bit of boredom. And so when you have a situation like this, it kind of manifests itself as like a pressure release.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and you can see that in modern times. I mean, a lot more people tend to be superstitious in the country.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to into the bigger cities.
And considering the time, too.
Yeah. So you have this conflagration, and then you have a certain set of circumstances that is very interesting. One of the questions I did have is not necessarily when did they think this was the devil, but more of the idea of how the image of the devil, of their devil, was applied to what they're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
The image of the devil as we see it today, and it's not far off of how they viewed it in Victorian England, as being this half man, half goat satyr-like being with the hoof prints, because the bottom half would be like a goat or a sheep or something, with horns and a pitchfork and all that. That image hasn't always been around. Mm-hmm. That's a formulation of after the Divine Comedy with Dante Alighieri. I think that was in the 12 or 1300s. The common concept of how we see the devil today is mainly a combination of 2 works of literature. You have the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri in the 12, 1300s. And if you don't know the name Divine Comedy, you might know Dante's Inferno, because the Divine Comedy is split into 3 books. You have the Inferno, you have Purgatorio, and you have Paradiso. But a lot of people usually just know Inferno, which is where, to surmise it really quickly, Dante gets a tour of hell.
Oh.
By the poet Virgil.
Little vacation down south.
Not really, but okay, yes, vacation, sure. And he kind of shows him how hell is set up. And that is really where we get a lot of our hell and punishments today. They go into extreme detail. If you know nothing, if you take nothing else away from medieval scribes, monasteries, in the interpretation of biblical text today, just know that when you have enough time on your hands to be able to sit around all day and only work, pray, eat, then sleep, you tend to be able to have the world abound of ways you can describe the punishments for the things you're trying to avoid. Case in point, one of the punishments in the Inferno for soothsayers or psychics would be to have your head cut off and sewn on backwards, so that you could no longer see into the future. So
that'll work.
You have these all the time where people have sat and thought about the specific punishments for the specific crime or sin that you've committed in life. And almost every one of them has it. So if you can think of a sin that is reoccurring, they have their own specific punishment, and it's fantastic, the imagery. So if you get the time to read that book, read it, because it really formulated how we view hell and the devil today. But the devil in the Inferno is this big monstrous character that sits at the final level of hell, I believe in the middle of a frozen lake, but he's very monstrous looking. Before that, the devil really wasn't monstrous to say. He was part of the angelic legion who in one point or another, I will not get into the theology of this, but defied God and was cast out of heaven. So he essentially could be viewed as one of the most beautiful angels out there. So he could still look what you might view as an angel today. Again, this is another sidetrack that I will not take. Most angels probably aren't the way that you picture them, because that's not the way they're pictured in the Bible.
Without
it's just
the wings and all that.
Culturally handed down, this is the way they look. But in theory, if I'm going to keep straight and narrow, and I'm trying my best to, because you know me, I want to take sidetracks and caveats. Most likely the devil in theory would look like the same way an angel would look. But if you're going to try to explain why that might not be the case, and maybe because since he's not in heaven anymore, he's become corrupted or whatever, and that corruption would cause a physical change. So that's kind of how Dante viewed it. After that, we have the work of Paradise Lost by John Milton. And that book was the second book that really solidified the idea of how the devil looks and how hell works. But before those times, the devil would not most likely have been viewed as such, which is my main point for this big, long diatribe that I'm on now. That before these two works of art in literature came around, the devil probably wouldn't have had that look. So in theory, if this same set of circumstances would have happened pre-year 1000, then this would be not the same situation we are looking at today. Really, the only reason why we're looking at it today is because of how we currently, and in the Victorian era, view how the devil should look. So his footprints should look like this, and that's what this looks like. So connecting the dots, we have the devil's hoofprints now. So I really wanted to at least say a little bit of that, and I think I've taken up like an 11-minute explanation.
I'm about to fall asleep over
here. And I'm trying not to go in deeper, but have I given you the thought that I was thinking about?
Yeah.
Do you understand? Do you have anything to add to it at all?
Not really. So what is your opinion on what this the culprit could possibly be? I
don't know.
See, that's how I am too.
I want to lean naturally to a natural explanation. That's how I want to do. Even if it's not on the up and up, like if we have a bunch of human hoaxers, though, let's just say we have a few humans who want to hoax this. And like I said in the narrative, it's not of how could they, or not why not it wouldn't be a question of why would they, because people are bored, they do some stupid stuff when they're bored. But how could they? If you had a few different people working, could a few different people using the same methods cover 100 miles worth of hoaxing, right?
Even still, though, like I said, you would hear them up on your roof.
You could, yeah.
And
then also, though, like that same argument to me still applies to the same mouse. So let's just say it's the same mouse, right? Because if they're all relatively the same size, mice still kind of change in size. We have different sizes of people. Yeah. We may have different sizes of mice. Could the same mouse do the same thing that a human hoaxer could? So if we're questioning just the sheer amount of time that it would take for a human or humans to make these tracks, the same would apply to the same mouse. You know what I mean?
So just one lone mouse that like travels all this distance.
Could it feasibly do that distance? Yeah, that's the question in my mind. If it's going more natural,
well, I think that's crazy.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. But if we're not going natural, and I'm going to entertain some unnatural force, right? This is really speaking to me lately. Maybe the past 2 years have been making sense to me, and it kind of all encompasses my kind of religious views. Would be that of I am gravitating towards the idea that we manifest what we believe in. For example, have you ever heard of a tulpa?
Yeah.
Have we talked about tulpas on here?
No.
Okay. The long and short of a tulpa would be basically like a doll that you would make, and it could be out of anything, right? And you usually, I think, if I remember the explanation right, you want a physical manifestation of it. So even if you take like a child's toy, like an action figure, and you use that as the tulpa, that still works. But the idea is that you create a tulpa in your mind that has a physical manifestation, and you think about what you want it to do and its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And you can manifest it to life. Whether or not it's physically walking around, which that remains to be seen, but spiritually doing what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that could get quickly out of hand, because if you don't set clear boundaries on what you wanted to do, then it could become its own life and its own spiritual force, and then do whatever it wants. And if you're creating this, you don't really want that to happen. That's not good for the universe, right? So that is me speaking in terms I don't usually speak in. I think you can agree. I usually don't talk like this. But what got me thinking about this more, and maybe the validity that it would hold, would be my long-held idea that I think that gods exist and hold credence because of how many people think about and put thought into it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, at one point in time, we had the Greek myths. And everybody believed in the Greek myths in Greece. And there was no real question of whether or not this god did this for us or this god did this for us. And that has held throughout human history. I mean, just quickly going through like the Roman Empire, they had basically the same freaking god, just with different names and with minute changes. And they would have like a god for whatever, and you would pray for that god for that minute section of your daily life to make sure that your spoon didn't break or something like that, right? And that that could possibly manifest itself because at least you believe in it, and you are putting your life force and what your energy into it, manifesting it in a way. Whether or not your spoon, whether or not it just means that your spoon really doesn't break, then technically your spoon didn't break. Could one argue that it would have broken if you wouldn't have believed that your spoon wouldn't have broken?
True.
And that may be a terrible because we use metal spoons, but bear with me. I don't know why your spoon would break, but just the idea. So with this, and I'm kind of circling back to the idea, the imagery of the devil. Historically, the image of the devil has changed, but at some point it did change to what we have today and what we have in Victoria, England. So if people believe that the devil is real and they believe in it in a collected form, if everybody believes in the same image, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then would that image be able to manifest in that fashion? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I could kind of go along with that.
Okay, so if previously to this we thought the devil was a rock. Let's just say it's a rock, right? A devil is a rock that's blue in color. But then for some reason we all change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we think, no, the devil now is half man, half goat. It has horns, and he carries around a pitchfork, and he's got a tail that looks weird. What do you call that? Pointed tail.
Yeah.
Right? So now we've all shifted. Now we're all are thinking and putting our energy into belief that this thing is coming to get us and we need to stop it, right? Whether or not how we're thinking about it, we're still putting thought and we're still putting energy into combating this evil that used to be a rock. And now we're putting so much energy and thought and belief into the fact that he now looks like this, that we now give him a part of our energy to be able to manifest in this image. So in the future, if we think, no, that's not what he looks like that Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So now the devil can only work within the means that we give him because it's our energy we're giving. And if we give that energy to make him look like a goddamn Christmas tree, then that's all he has to work with. That's how we manifest him.
You've really thought this out.
Well, this is part of my I don't want to call it beliefs, but how I feel the universe works.
Yeah.
Right? And we can get into all this because this kind of plays into like real magic, into how one could get into magic, and let's not go into it too deep. But it's not the magic where you choose a card and here's your card magic. This is like people who legitly believe they're practicing magic, not with necessarily spells like we sit in a circle and we light candles, how you perceive it, but actual like
thought energy.
Yes, thought energy magic. Yes. And those two for me tie in all of this. You know, we've had the thought of Jesus for the past 2,000 years, and we have a whole lot of people who believe in nearly the same image of Jesus. Now, that's not exactly true, but the idea of how God works and how Jesus is related to that God, we have a general consensus because we have essentially the same book people are reading from. Mm-hmm. So are we not manifesting God? Are we not manifesting the devil? So in this case, again, I get long-winded. I apologize. But even if I don't believe that the devil really looks like this, and so I'm going to combat the idea that I don't think the devil looks like that, that can't be his hoof prints. With my theory, if a bunch of people do believe that, then this thing, whether or not they're real devil or one they've just imagined, could in theory make those hoof prints.
Yeah.
So I'm going to land firmly on the fence again, as I usually do.
We went all the way out and around just to come back and say we're still on the fence.
Yeah, but it gave us something to talk about and some thought ideas. So if anybody else has an idea on magic, if anybody else has an idea on this idea of a tulpa, do your little bit, look it up. You know, I don't know if we'll actually be doing any shows on actual magic or tulpas, but look it up. Until then, and if you have anything to add to this discussion, get on the group, Supernatural Tendencies group.
On Facebook?
Yep, on Facebook. Hit us up on our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, all those stuffs, and let us know what you find. Let us know what you think. So, do you have anything else to discuss today?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
You good? Yeah. I like this story, though.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
And I still want to think that the devil wanted to get out for some exercise.
Could be.
That's what I want to believe.
Even the devil is worried about his health. He doesn't want to have a massive heart attack like Daryl.
Oh, poor Daryl. And you still have him out running around now.
No, well, the doctor said he needs to work on his cardio, so I'm helping Daryl.
Did the doctors, air quotes, say that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's all about what's best for Daryl.
Oh, Daryl. We got to get Daryl on the show.
Oh my God, we do.
He'll get all weird and then...
He'll get all weird and say dumb stuff. And
if he says anything at all. Anyway, we'll talk to him. Until then, we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
We'd like to say thank you one more time for hopping on board with us this week. If you have any comments, questions, critiques, or suggestions for new topics, please send us an email at supernaturaltendentiespodcast@gmail.com. We also encourage you to get over to our Facebook page at Supernatural Tendencies Podcast and go ahead and elbow drop that like button for us. We're also available on Instagram at Supernatural Tendencies Podcast and Twitter at Weird and Scary, if that's more to your liking. Please pass us around to your friends as well, where they can find us on Apple Podcasts, CastBox, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and most other podcast platforms.
And remember, if you're having any type of paranormal activity or extraterrestrial contact, I offer private coaching online via Skype or Facebook Messenger to assist you with those issues. Feel free to visit me at ChristyJohnsonSadler.com for contact information.
Till next time, this has been Alex.
And Christy.
See you later. Here we are, sticking around after hours again, into the wee morning of the, or hours of the, oh, man, why do I always mess that up on this part?
I don't know.
Wee hours of the morning, sticking around for the musician spotlight, and we thank you for doing so. You're not going to add anything?
Oh, I didn't know you were done.
Oh, you just sit there staring at me like you're waiting to jump.
Nobody saw that face.
No,
if they did, they would...
That's what's happening. This week in the Musician Spotlight, we have our first hip-hop artist, which excites me to no end in all regions of the body and mind.
Me too, especially.
Yeah. We got, this week, we were contacted by the amazing Taylor, who is the social media guru for our artist this week, who is Venom, a.k.a. Eddie Brocc, out of New York.
Brooklyn.
So for all you naysayers out there who just think we do the Midwest stuffs, we don't do the Midwest stuffs. We do everybody's stuffs. And this week with Venom Eddie Brocc coming out of, I kicked my chair, coming out of Brooklyn, I believe, Brooklyn, New York, doing just straight hip hop, man. Like it's good. It's good new hip hop stuff. The song we got today has a hook that will stick in your mind for a solid month.
Yep.
Because I think I've talked with Taylor almost 3 weeks ago, almost a month ago. And it's not been out of my head. Like I've been at work and people ask me questions about my inventory. Like, hey, did you order that chair in? I'm like, all we do is get this money. All we do is get this money. Like it's terrible. And they just kind of look at me and then slowly turn around and walk away.
Yeah.
And then hope that I have the chair ordered.
Well, that's Alex. At least he's making money.
At least he's making that money, I guess. So yes, check out Venom Eddie Brocc. I believe the song we have today you can check out on most streaming platforms. I think the going thing today is to check him out on Spotify. So get his listens up. It's fantastic. Like I said, it will get stuck in your head. I don't think he has any shows lined up here lately. I just looked it up. I didn't see any on there. So if there are, I do apologize. Whenever we post this, I think Taylor is going to be watching for it. Taylor, if you have any shows for him or any events lined up for Venom, go ahead and add those in to however you share or however we share, add those in. And we will get started on playing this track. Again, Get This Money by Venom, a.k.a. Eddie Brocc.
Shit. Venom, a.k.a. Eddie Brocc, man. 3 times all the time. MGM, MOE. Brooklyn shit, we in here. All we do is get this money. 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 Ride around in my Lexus, stacking these blocks like Tetris. Through the side door, let the text spit. Snatch your necklace, get your chest hit. My phone clicking right now. You need work, you can get it right now. Ain't nobody spitting my style. Gotta chill sometimes, I be living tight wild. Thinking where all of my thoughts went. Smoke clouds in my apartment. I don't mumble a stutter, I just keep it gutter. Think for the cause, not for the color. I don't believe in assuming. It's only money I'm choosing. Y'all looking bummy and stupid. Pull up you front, we shooting. Trust me, it's nothing I do this. Easy peasy was moving. Have not speed of movement. They any one of y'all kinda outside. Gunners a ride or someone will die. Facts. What's on my mind? Racks. I mix the sour with fine wax. Burn out it, then that's a time cap. You gotta rewind that. All we do is get this money. 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 All we do is get this money.